Welcome in, Falcons fans. It's your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again to talk more Falcons football with you. And we have a special guest on today's show. Chief National Reporter for NFL Network, Steve Wyche, is here with us now to talk Falcons. And how are you doing today, Steve?
Bryce, I am great. Thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've been on the show once before, and I want to bring you back again. You know, very high respected figure within the Atlanta Falcons community as well. So obviously, want that prestige on the show as well. But let's go ahead and dive right into it, Steve. So Falcons have had a pretty active offseason, I'd say. Spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball. Drafted, Bijan Robinson with the 8th pick of the draft. They've added pieces around, a team that the last couple of years people may say was talent deficient because of cap room, didn't have a lot of resources. And they've also made Desmond Ridder QB1, as they've announced that earlier in the offseason. So my first question to you is just, what is your initial thoughts on what the Falcons have done so far up to this point in the offseason?
Well, I like how you said active because, they finally had the cap money and they spent a good chunk of it. But, they took a route that has seemed to be more successful than the team that goes out and says, we got to get the big name, big splash, free agent or two. They use their money wisely. They got David Onyemata, the defensive tackle / defensive end from the Saints, a really good player to pair with Grady Jarrett, can rotate him around with Grady Jarrett because they also added Calais Campbell. So now they've got some guys to position flex. So now that allows them to rotate Ellis, another outside linebacker they brought in from the Saints, and guys like Arnold Ebiketie, where they can play a 3-man line, a 4-man line, and a 5-man line, which is something you're going to see from new defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen. Remember, he made his hay as a D-line coach. So that's really going to be an emphasis with the Falcons of getting, being stout against the run, manufacturing pressure, and having fresh bodies up front. Like, think about what the Saints did and how that defense was just dominant with its defensive front over the years. So that's what they're trying to establish there. They've already got some pretty good talent at inside linebacker. You go out and you make the trade for Jeff Okudah. You get Jesse Bates on the back end. You add him to some safeties who are pretty good right there. Then you've got A.J. Terrell on the other side. So, defensively, personnel-wise, they look better. They still don't have the guy who can win one-on-one, pass rush, or so we don't think. I mean, maybe Ebiketie or Malone develops into that guy. We'll see. But defensively, they look like they're better. Now they just have to translate and got to generate turnovers, right? So on offense, they told you exactly what they're about. We're going to run the ball at you. We're going to possess the ball. And we're going to do what we can to minimize putting pressure on Desmond Ridder, right? So you go out and you get Bijan Robinson to pair him with Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier. 3-headed monster. You can play 2 of them at once. You can put all 3 of them on the field at once because they can all catch. They can motion to dictate coverages. You've got Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts. They went out and they got the old tight end from Tennessee. I'm blanking right now. Who went to New England and played with Jonnu Smith. So they've got options now. You're going to see them try to beat you with personnel packaging. Things like the Saints used to do, right? The Saints used to have good personnel, but packaging. Every play, Sean Payton's running in 2 backs, 1 back, 3 tight end. They've got the ability to do that type of stuff. They just have to hope their offensive line continues to get better. They get better at left guard. And that Desmond Ridder, is the deal. I mean, none of this works if Desmond Ridder doesn't hold up his end of the deal.
Yeah, definitely. And let's stick on Ridder for a second. Obviously, he has been probably the biggest question mark, I think some people think, is the entire team, especially on offense, because we don't know. He only played 4 games at the end of the year last year. Obviously, people are trying to break down the games and trying to figure out, okay, this is good, this isn't good. How is he going to translate? Now, this offseason, he's going to get a full offseason to work with the first team, get reps, develop, and that's what they're planning on, having happen as this offseason continues going into the regular season. And I don't think they're going to ask him to do a lot, especially with what you just said. They're going to run it at you, personal packages. So my question to you is, what should be the expectation for Desmond Ridder this season? What should Arthur Smith expect from him in his second year?
A comparable touchdown or a decent touchdown to interception ratio. I'm not saying he's got to have 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, but if he has 22 touchdown passes, he can't have double-digit interceptions, right? That negates so much. So let's say he's 22-9. You can live with that if you're running the ball in for touchdowns when you get down, inside the 10-yard line. Or doing things swing passes, like nothing too crazy. But the one thing about Desmond Ridder, and when I used to call their preseason games and watch him, he will drive the ball downfield. He is not afraid to throw guys open. He trusts his abilities to get the ball to his talent, and he trusts his talent to make a play. It's a big change. Remember, they played safe football with Marcus Mariota, roll out, get the ball out of his hands, and be risk averse. I think Desmond's got a little gunslinger to him. We saw it in Cincinnati. And I think once he starts to understand this, you're going to see that more and more of him with this offense, especially with the big receiving targets that he has. But again, they're not going to ask him to do too much. So this is where the offensive line, the run game, has got to keep him out of 3rd and 8s and make these 3rd and 4s. So teams will try to load up to stop the run of the short passing game, and that's when he can hit the big play down the field.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, people would say in general, if you have a run-first offense, it's always ideal for a young quarterback just because it takes that pressure off of them. And I think that's definitely what they want to do. But someone they added during the draft, as I mentioned earlier, Bijan Robinson with the 8th pick, a guy who some people may consider maybe the best overall player in the draft to some people. But obviously he's a running back taken in the top 10, and that obviously raised questions. But they expect him to do a lot. They expect him to receive, run. I mean, maybe they might even use him in special teams. He's expected to make an impact in year 1. So I just want to know, what did you think of the pick when they made it, and do you think Bijan will live up to the hype that has been set for him going into this season?
Well, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the pick. I mean, and that's the thing, because a guy like Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback, was off the board. He's somebody who I thought could really be a difference maker in the type of stuff they're going to do defensively. So getting a guy like Bijan and knowing what Arthur Smith wants to do and how they invested, in re-signing the right side of the offensive line in free agency, no surprise. Now, Bijan Robinson is a potential big play running back, right? So they've got Tyler Algier, who's kind of your, let's say, possession running back. Very safe, very solid, great yards after contact. Cordero, physical runner, can hit it outside, can hit it inside, but you got to pace him. He's got some mileage on those legs. So now you got fresh legs. You can come in there and hit the big play. And if you see certain offenses, and this is kind of, not fully, but kind of what Arthur Smith likes to do, and the run game is very much what someone like Mike McDaniel down in Miami wants to do, who borrowed from the Shanahan system. Speed, right? Which separates the Niners running game in that system and the Dolphins running game in that system from what most other teams who run that system have. Speed. Every running back can run and beat a defender, right? Turn a 6-yard gain into a 16-yard gain. But also, every running back in that scheme finishes runs, right? They're not just, going down. They're delivering blows at the end of runs. They're knocking a defender's shoulder pads back, right? So that's what all 3 of these running backs have. That's what they want. So when it comes to the fourth quarter, those safeties who are coming down and cracking you in the box early in the game are thinking twice about doing that. Again, that's why I'm so interested in seeing how the Falcons play, because finishing games has been a very difficult thing for them, closing them out. You get a guy like Bijan, maybe one game he's your finisher, but then the next game he's your middleman, fatiguing the defense, so Tyler Algier can come in and pound you. Right? Again, think of some of the teams that do that. The Niners, Christian McCaffrey a lot in the first half, Elijah Mitchell, who's a hammer. He's their second half guy. And so that's kind of the thinking, I think, with this running back committee that Atlanta's going into the season.
Yeah, and I think, they already had the second ranked rushing attack last year, so I fully expect to have another top 5 rushing attack this year. That would be probably ideal for what they want to do on the offensive side of the ball. But now we're going to switch back over to the defensive side of the ball. And you mentioned earlier about all the additions the Falcons made to, improve the front, especially in the interior, add with the secondary with Jesse Bates, AJ, Jeff Okudah. So my question is, last year, one thing maybe some people would say is that maybe this team in certain games were out physical by certain teams.
Yep, they were.
And so this year, I feel like a lot of the additions they made, especially in the interior, were to help fix that, to not be out physical, especially with Ryan Nielsen as defense coordinator. I think he wants a physical defense, fast, goes, hits the ball, but also won't be pushed back at the line of scrimmage. That's what the Saints have been for the last few years. They've been one of the best line of scrimmage teams in the league. So I think he's trying to bring that here. Do you feel like they've accomplished that with what they've done so far up front in the front seven?
On paper. I mean, they have put the pads on. But again, David Onyemata was part of that Saints front. He was a setup guy. I mean, he really helped guys, like Marcus Davenport and Trey Hendrickson and Cam Jordan, right? So now you've got, and again, he can play your nose, he can play your 3, you can flex him out to a 5, right? And that's something, again, him and Grady Jarrett now become some nice little positionless parts. You play a heavy run team, you reduce Calais Campbell inside from a 5 to a 3. You play it real tight, play a 5-man front like the Jacksonville Jaguars do, right? A lot more teams are playing that 5-man look, where if they've got to have an edge rusher drop in coverage, they've got somebody like Ellis who can drop in coverage, right? So, what they've done is got so many positionless types of players. Because, right, we saw Ellis last year in New Orleans play inside, play outside. He was really good inside, especially when it came to pressuring the passer and instinctually getting to plays to stop off the run. But he's also got the speed to come off the edge, right? So now they got competition saying, I don't want this guy to get my reps. Okay, Malone, you're going to come out and play. All right, Ebiket, you going to come out and play? Are you going to build on this type of stuff? Okay, Troy Anderson, are you going to come out and play? You going to figure it out? Because you got some guys, Michael Walker, you got guys trying to take your spot now. You look at that depth chart, you might want to play more in special teams. So that's one thing I really, really like. But again, the physical aspect of it, they got worn down again. We saw it. They couldn't control the run. They let out too many leaky plays. You had too many busted mental assignments, which, going back to Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Fame coach, you make a lot of your mistakes when you're fatigued. You get beat on, that happens. So, I think that's something that they're really, again, with positionless players, they can rotate guys. You can have a little more depth. If they got to play a lot of nickel, D. Alford, we saw how impactful a player he can be. They've got a lot of guys now that they can interchange and rest up. And so, they know they're going to try and possess the ball and control the clock. They've got to have a defense that not only can stop the run, but also not get beat on the big play. That's huge. These possession types of teams know that other teams are like, okay, you want to come out and milk the clock? We're going to come down and hit you with a 3-point shot right out, quick in transition. And then that'll kind of negate you. Like, oh, man, we got to go out there and try and run a 12-play drive again. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I like what they've done. We'll see how it all pairs up as the season goes along. We'll see if they come out like gangbusters. Their schedule is on paper friendly, but they've got to put it together.
Yeah, definitely. They have to actually put all the pieces together and make it work. And that's going to be, I think, an exciting part of the season, just to see what it looks like. I think that's why there's actually a lot of excitement for the season, because this would probably be, some people would consider on paper, the best roster they've had in 3 years under the Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot regime, which now I want to get into them. So when they obviously came here, we knew about the situation, cap restrictions, a lot of dead cap, couldn't really spend money. You had to build through the draft. You had to see what you had in players. And that's what they've done with a lot of one-year deals and a lot of rookies that now are in their third year, second year with them. So my question to you is, since they've been here, Terry and Arthur, they clearly have a vision. You maybe have not been able to put that vision together so quickly. Now, maybe this offseason, it seems like maybe they're able to, again, with all the less restrictions and cap space that they have, to go get players. Do you look at this team and what they want to do and say, okay, I know what this team wants to be. I know what they're trying to go for. And they feel like they've put together the roster so far. Obviously, things can change between now and training camp and the beginning of the season, but so far, they feel confident they can execute that for the first time, maybe in 30 years.
Look, they've made no mistake of who they are. The one thing that Arthur Smith and his staff have done is they have established an identity. Offensively, we are going to pound you, right? And then defensively, they're trying to figure it out. Again, Dean Pease is gone. Ryan Nielsen's coming in from the Saints. Somebody Terry Fontenot's familiar. And we know the Saints have been top 5 in almost every major defensive category for the past 4 or 5 seasons. So, and I've talked to Dennis Allen, like losing Ryan Nielsen is a blow to that team. He says most D-line coaches only see the world through the prism of D-lines. And so Nielsen sees it all the way through. Like, this guy's a different guy. And so, they want this defense to match the physicality of their offense. And so I think Arthur Smith, again, they've got guys in there who, right now, the guys they've drafted, they know they've got to compete. They know that a lot of them may not have the overall talent to win a one-on-one matchup. But if they play together on the thread, they can dominate. So you can see the mindset, which is why they've competed when they have not had talent to match up with a lot of teams in the NFL. So that's important, that culture, so to speak. And the fact that Arthur and Terry have worked so well together in maintaining that. Now, they almost threw everything out the window when they made the play for Deshaun Watson. That's what you call breaking your principle, right? They almost threw everything out of it. When that didn't happen, they got back to what they wanted to establish, and they stayed on that track the way they drafted and assembled the team last year. Again, the way they methodically went about free agency this year. They spent money. They addressed positions of need on defense, but they did not go for the glamour move, which just seemed very far out of the way of Arthur Smith. I don't think he wants a bunch of glamour guys. I think he wants a bunch of guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you've seen that, like I said, just through how they've had to address this team the last 3 years. That's why it's not surprising. Even today, signing a wide receiver from, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but just, even though it may not seem like a big deal, just guys that they feel like contribute.
Well, you put someone like Matt Collins, right? Matt Collins is a big wide receiver who they got from the Raiders. He's a good player, man. They saw him a couple years ago with the Dolphins. He was with the Dolphins. They had inter-squad practice. Or they had the joint practices. Matt Collins was killing him. Big dude, rangy target, killing him in the kicking game, really good blocker. So then last year when the Raiders played, teams were doubling up Devontae Adams, tripling him up. Matt Collins was a dude at the end of games. He's a good player. That's the type of guy they have across the board. I do think they need to have a hit. Dude who they can throw a hit screen to and he can go. Right? Or who can blow the top off of a defense. There's going to be games that's going to need to happen. But they have again assembled a team of a bunch of pale blue collar guys who, if everybody remains egoless, they could have something. They could really have something pretty special.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's what they're going for. But I want to ask you one last thing before I let you go. So, the team, seeing the roster as it is right now, if there was another move that the team could make, is there any player or any position in mind that the Falcons could still add to before camp or before the regular season starts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they're going to go out and get someone like Jadeveon Clowney, but Yannick Ngakoue would be a hell of a situational pass rusher. I mean, his thing is, stature. He's not the most stout guy against the run, but man, this dude has produced a ton of sacks and a ton of strip sacks and forced fumbles in his career. So you put him in situationally next to a guy like Calais Campbell, who you've got to occupy, and you maybe put Onyemata or Grady and Calais Ngakoue on the same side, well then, that changes it. So, that's somebody, when you talk about productive veterans who are still available right now, you would have to look at. Maybe they don't think they need Unique, but man, he brings something. He's been on a lot of different teams. He has produced everywhere. So I wouldn't run away from that if the money's right. Now they don't need to pay him huge money for a year. But the money is when I talk about huge money, you don't have to pay him 16, 17 million. But if you can get him for 7 or 8, do it, because that guy can play.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's been a name that's popped up a lot in people's, if there was another free agent the Falcons to get, because he would be a great addition to this team. Kind of, would it be safe to say maybe like when the Super Bowl year when they signed Dwight Freeney, just that extra pass rusher?
Yep, at 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah. So hopefully maybe that's something they do. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But Steve, I won't keep you any longer, man. I appreciate you coming on to the show, man. Any final thoughts you want to let off before I let you go?
Well done by you. My final thought is just continued success, and good luck to you, man. I appreciate you doing what you're doing. You're serving the people the right way, man. So I appreciate you having me on your show. Just thank you so much.
Man, I appreciate that, Steve. Of course, man. Well, I would not want to have you on the show, man. You're a great person, bro. I've watched you for years, so it was cool, like, you actually, like, talking to you the first time, like, 2 years ago, and now having you back on again. So, like I said, appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come onto the show, man.
Absolutely, Bryce.
But, Falcons fans, that's all we got for you today. It's your boy, Bryce Lewis. We'll see you next time.